to see some serious shit.
The Avengers! Captain America! Iron Man! Vision! Hawkeye! The Avengers!
I know that nobody in the States is going to listen to this before next week and once they've had a chance to see it, but I will just give you a heads up. I'm going to be going into minor spoilers regarding the overall story and the character development. I promise I'm not going to blow any of the major surprises tonight. You deserve to be able to experience them for yourself, and I'm not going to arrogantly assume that you already have read all the spoilers. So don't worry, I'm not going to blow the major bits. In fact, it would be very easy for you to blow the film all by yourself just by going onto YouTube, because last time I looked, there were a ton of leaked clips of the ending of the film, the single best moment of the film, a couple of the big money shots. There's spoilers all over the web. Wikipedia has a full blow-by-blow of the story. And as Christina was telling me, some of their friends... why don't you tell the story, actually, Chris?
Yeah, I was over at a friend's place. We were all hanging out watching TV, and a commercial for the Avengers came on TV, and we started talking about it. And then one of my friends said, well, do you guys want to watch it? And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, yeah, I've got it on DVD. And he ran into his room and pulled it out, and sure enough, he had it. And everyone's like, yeah, let's watch it. And I said, yeah, I'm going home.
Your friend supports terrorism.
And, well, well, I'm not going to go that far, but I will say that... I had to think about that for a second. But I will say, if people are going to experience this for the first time on a crappy bootleg, they are very foolish indeed. This film is big screen entertainment. It is awe-inspiringly entertaining. It has a size and a scope that is so far beyond what's being shown in the trailers, it's ridiculous. I'd even say that its size and its scope goes beyond the biggest Marvel fans' wettest dream. You must think it must have been hard enough to get all of these extremely busy actors together, so they won't have that many scenes, together. Wrong. You'd think they'd spent so much getting this amazing cast together that they won't be able to afford the action extravaganza that you imagine in your head. Wrong. You'd imagine, even if they get these heroes together, the supporting players from those characters' individual films won't show up. Wrong. You'd think there'd be no way one film could handle all the baggage of these characters, giving them all equal breathing space. Wrong. And you just sit there slack-jawed for most of it. I could not believe this was happening. I can't believe they pulled it off. And yet, for all the spectacle, the best thing about the film, and the reason I'll be seeing it again next week, is that when these characters just get together in the same room and talk, it's magic. The dialogue is so zippy, the character dynamics so well defined, the characters all so different from one another, that I just had the biggest grin on my face. And the bar has been set almost impossibly high for the rest of the summer as far as I'm concerned. It's fucking awesome. That's the short version. If you want to back out, now's your chance. There were two major concerns that I had going into the Avengers. The first is that although I've enjoyed all the Marvel Studios movies thoroughly, I don't think they've achieved their full potential. Incredible Hulk was filmed as a movie with depth and character and emotion, but it had its guts ripped out in editing. Thor didn't give its main character a really powerful emotional journey to go on. Captain America became very rushed in its third act. Iron Man 2 obviously had a lot of problems. Hulk and Cap had very odd endings because Marvel felt it was better to remind us that the Avengers was coming rather than end those individual films on a strong emotional note. And I was just worried that Avengers was going to be undercooked as well, because if the films could not exploit the full potential of a character when it was their solo film, then how are the filmmakers going to manage it when they're all mashed together? The second concern I had was that these characters have already been established in their old films, so the Avengers would use that as an excuse not to introduce or develop them properly in this film. That it would be the kind of effects you'd get in a later Harry Potter film, where the characters show up, but the attitude of the filmmakers is very much, look, if you don't know who these people are by now, we're not going to help you. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing when obviously you want to keep things moving, but you know, I don't think it makes the strongest film. I always think every film should be self-contained and make that effort. I am over the moon to report that Avengers makes that effort. In fact, I would say that this film works perfectly for people who haven't seen a single Marvel Studios film. Now that's amazing if you think about it, and I think it's the greatest achievement of this film. If you are a newcomer, there's a lot of information to take in. It is quite overwhelming at times, but I think it works. The basic plot of the film is just that the Tesseract, otherwise known as the Cosmic Cube, the Deus Ex Machina that the Red Skull found in Captain America and that S.H.I.E.L.D. has ended up being in possession of, can do anything. The Tesseract is bad news, and Thor's brother Loki returns from his cosmic exile and lands on Earth to get it, and if he uses it, we're all fucked. There's a lot more to it, but that's essentially all you need to know. In fact, if you count the amount of times the word Tesseract is said in the film, it's got to be at least 50. Like, they keep talking about it all the time. The film keeps the focus on the plot, and we never forget about it. The film does not assume that we already love these characters, that the other films earned that love, and that we should be just grateful to see them again and see them together. No, the Avengers takes the time and effort to reintroduce them, to tell us everything we need to know about who they are and how they tick. Each character gets a journey to go on. Each character has grown by the end into something better. And actually what I'd love to do is go through each one of them individually. Let's start with Iron Man, because of course everything we're talking about tonight started with Shellhead, and it's interesting to discuss this character because he's had the advantage, or maybe disadvantage, over the other heroes of having 2 films under his belt, and in those 2 films we explored his ego, his issues, his bouts with death, and all of which he's pretty much conquered by the time we meet him in this film. When we meet Tony Stark in the Avengers, life is sunny. He's settled down with Pepper Potts, he has found a balance in his life, and I think the message is clear. However, some fans might want it to be otherwise. This Tony Stark is never going to become an alcoholic. They're just not going there, so we'll have to get over that.
Probably for the best.
It's probably for the best. If it would have to be done pitch perfectly, if it wasn't going to feel preachy. I think it's important also to mention Gwyneth Paltrow's Pepper Potts, who I didn't even know was going to show up in this film. One of my main problems with Iron Man 2 was I found the character of Pepper to be utterly repellent. I loved her in the first film, but every single second she was on screen, and the second she's yelling or condemning Tony or just generally screaming or interrupting, and Jamie and I had our disagreements about that when we reviewed that film. Like, I understood the idea that Pepper was not going to take any crap from Tony anymore and Tony was driving her crazy, but they just got carried away with it, and it got to the point where I literally could not invest in that relationship. Let alone understand how these two characters could possibly feel anything for each other. In this one scene in this film where we introduced the two of them again, all the bad feelings went away. Pepper is lovable again because she clearly shows that she loves Tony and Tony loves her and they're happy together. And something as simple as that is all it takes. In fact, one of the things that we've talked about on the show before is whether Iron Man 2 did a lot of damage to the character as far as people's enthusiasm to see him again in another solo film. And I honestly think Avengers washes away any bad taste left in your mouth from Iron Man 2. I think people are going to be ready for Iron Man 3 next year, and I just hope Shane Black has as good an angle on the character as Joss Whedon does. I mean, I'm personally very much looking forward to it. I mean, if you think about this film as Iron Man Part 3, what are one of the major effects of the third film curse in comic book movies? For me, it's either that the hero gets boring or tiresome, or that there's just little to no visual appeal left in them because of all their superpowers having been exploited to the hilt. If I see Blade turn vampires to ash one more time in Blade Trinity, I'm going to kill myself. One of the many reasons I wanted to kill myself watching that piece of shit. I was fed up of seeing Spider-Man swinging in Spider-Man 3, no matter how the actual quality of the film turned out. Iron Man is still fucking cool. I think the zapping people with repulsor rays thing is getting old, but the Avengers keeps that to a minimum. I still get such a charge out of seeing him fly, seeing him put that armor on or off. And Downey's performance deserves a lot of credit too, because he reins it in. He lets the other characters speak. Like, he dominates some of the teen scenes, but there's a specific reason for it in the story. He's still an egomaniac. He's always been a one-man show, and more than that, he's made the safety of the Earth his own personal responsibility, as in, he does it alone, he gets the credit, and he's not intending to die for it because he's the invincible Iron Man. He's built these suits so he can survive. He's never had to think about being a team player or thinking about sacrificing himself for other people. And he still does not believe in the idea of the Avengers. By the end, though, he understands it, and he attempts to make the biggest sacrifice of all. Most importantly, you'll be glad to know, Iron Man is not the leader of the team. Captain America is, and I love what they do to Steve Rogers in this film. They don't exactly say, but you get the impression the Avengers takes place barely a few weeks after the events of, after the end of Captain America. So he's had no time to adjust to his new surroundings or understand how the world works. In fact, it's pretty much suggested that Steve's stayed at S.H.I.E.L.D. since he was thawed out, and he's not ventured. He's not left the base, he's not learned anything about the outside world. He's confused, he's disorientated, he's lost the love of his life. So in all that confusion, Steve reverts to his base instinct, that of a soldier. He's going to trust the people who thawed him out, he's going to obey orders, and he's going to focus on the mission. He's like Kevin Costner in The Untouchables, except without the family. He's the original Stiff. And there comes a moment in the middle of the film where the other characters feel like Nick Fury is hiding something from them, and they shouldn't be so trusting. And of course, Tony's had some trust issues with S.H.I.E.L.D. in the past, so he's inclined to believe that. And Cap is the only one who keeps hammering that they need to stick together, and it's their duty to trust and obey and follow orders. And then he turns out to be wrong, because Fury was hiding something from them, something which changes everything, and has the whole team, even its most stable element, all turning on each other. And it's a harsh lesson for a man of a completely different time, where governments and military could be depended upon to make the right decisions. Steve has no concept of a modern conspiratorial defense force, the type that keeps secrets even from itself. But Cap comes out on the other end of this, thinking for the first time about who he's playing for and what he believes in, and he emerges as a true leader. And it's fair to say that if it weren't for the leadership of Captain America, the team would have failed. They wouldn't have won. Oh, guess that's a spoiler. They win.
Damn it.
Sorry, folks. Let's talk about Hulk. Now, right now, Marvel head honcho Kevin Feige has said that they're not planning for there to be another solo Hulk movie. I think his specific words were that they're going to treat the character carefully. So it's not a flat-out denial, but he's saying, obviously what we knew to be true is that they've made 2 movies, they haven't been that successful. He's had 2 times at bat, and I understand completely why he feels the way that he does. But dude, Kevin, listen to me, okay? UK audiences are very reserved. We watch the film quietly and respectfully, and then we go home. I have never seen so many people congregating in the lobby after a film, at least 50 people, and they were all talking about Hulk. Regardless of the films, people's affection for that character has diminished. I honestly believe that people love Hulk, have always loved Hulk. You've just got to use him in the right way. And he is the star of this show. He gets all the best moments. Again, those moments are being leaked on YouTube, and I urge you not to spoil them for yourself. Be very, very careful. But it's the same thing's going to happen to you. If you're going with a group of friends, I guarantee you, the first thing out of all your mouths will be, Hulk was fucking dope. That's what you're going to say.
Oh, I have no doubt about that. Everyone keeps saying that, but maybe the argument is the fact that it's a limited capacity, though. Is we've had 2 Hulk movies, and I mean, I think we all agree here that the Hulk reboot worked. It worked. It was for what it was, but do we want more of that? Like, I just feel like people have had their fill of that character for a 2-hour movie. I still don't think they're going to make the TV show. I mean, tell me where I'm wrong on this. This is just my instinct.
No, you're not wrong at all. I think the main reason why I'd like to see a solo movie is really just because of the actor they've got now playing the part. Taking away the actual creature, Mark Ruffalo's performance as Bruce Banner is hands down my favourite of the film. And I honestly think you won't give Ed Norton a second thought once you see how good Ruffalo is here. Because his take on the character is, rather than playing him full of angst and tension and depression, a powder keg waiting to go off, it's the exact opposite. Like, Ruffalo's Banner is disarmingly sweet and charming and cheerful and mellow, and that makes him so much scarier, because you have no idea when or how he's going to be set off. Like, this Banner definitely seems much more in control of the monster. There was that final shot in Incredible Hulk of Banner, which suggested that he could now control the transformation at will. And if that is true, that does make Banner all the more scary to deal with. That it is a weapon that you can aim, to paraphrase the line from Incredible Hulk. We learn in this film whether that is true, whether he really does have control, and what does trigger the transformation these days. It is a wonderful moment. I can't possibly talk about it in detail until the rest of you had a chance to see it. Thor. Let's talk about Thor. Thor comes surprisingly late into the film. He's the last of the team to show up, but it's done in a wonderfully teasing way, because the whole first 30 minutes, I was just on the edge of my seat waiting for him, because there seems like several scenes where he could make his debut, and you know he's coming, you just don't know how and when. And one of the things I remember being concerned about the way the Thor movie ended was that the Avengers was going to have to spend a lot of time explaining how Thor gets back to Earth from Asgard. They don't spend any time on it at all. He just arrives and they explain it away with one line of dialogue, and it's actually fine. It keeps things moving. I honestly don't think you're going to have a problem with it, but you'll have to see the movie to know exactly what I'm talking about. What immediately does catch you, though, is that once Chris Hemsworth starts talking, you realise Joss Whedon has no problem making Thor speak exactly like he does in the old comics. Aye, verily, forsooth. He doesn't say any of those lines, but the tone and the style of his dialogue is very regal, very poetic, very dramatic. It's ballsy. You know, in the Thor movie, they specifically toned that down as much as possible, but here they take the risk that the audience is going to buy into it, and it's a real credit to Hemsworth as an actor that he can deliver it without being laughable. And again, it's all used as a storytelling device to make Thor stand out from the group. The character relationships in the Thor movie were by far my favourite of the films to date, because this is a wonderfully tragic story in many ways of a king with two sons to succeed him, and how one of them was unworthy because of his arrogance, and the other, who seemingly possesses all the right qualities, and yet is denied that by his birthright, or birth wrong, should we say, given that Loki is not a child of Asgard, he's really a child of the Frost Giants. And I loved how, even at the end of that film, after everything Loki had done, Thor still had love for his brother, and they continue that in the Avengers. Thor starts the film by thinking that Loki was dead, and he still bears the pain of that, and it's a painful transition for him, realising that Loki is beyond redemption. Speaking of Loki, Tom Hiddleston is still just fucking fantastic in this part. A lot of critics are singling him out above anyone else in the cast, and deservedly so. It's a deliciously written part. He has one line right at the start of the film that tells you all you need to know about him, and the line is, "I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose." That tells you everything you need to know about the guy. This is a guy who wants a throne and wants a kingdom to rule. That's what he wants. The way he sees it, he is the son of a king, and that's what a king's son gets by birthright. Whether he's the son of Odin, which he flat out says to Thor that he isn't, or he's the son of the Frost Giant King, who he murdered, if you remember, he was born to rule. And he also has a much different perspective on the universe and other life forms now. He's been through this cosmic black hole. He's seen things. He's run into these aliens and he's struck a bargain with them. He's seen how Earth and humanity fit into the larger scheme of cosmic order, and Loki's viewpoint is very much that we are insects who can only do harm to ourselves if we think for ourselves or we try to rule ourselves. From Loki's viewpoint, if everyone kneels before Zod, as it were, things will be much simpler and easier. He only wants to make our lives easy. He keeps saying this as everyone's kneeling down to him. He just says, "Isn't this easier? Isn't this so much simpler than the lives you have right now?" And he's also very much got that quality that I loved about Doctor Doom in the comics, that he truly believes in his ability to rule the Earth and do a great job. I just can't get enough of this character, and I think audiences are really digging him too, and I would bank on the fact that in Thor 2, there's no original villain. I think it's just going to be Loki again, and I don't mind that at all. This is a scene which I think a lot of people are going to be talking about, where he psychologically tries to break Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. That scene alone is worth the price of admission. That one scene tells us more about that character than every minute she's on screen in Iron Man 2. You could almost say it's a different character, but this time written by someone who knows who Black Widow is, knows her origin, knows how to use her, and isn't just shoehorning her in for fan service. Because you really feel like, in an Iron Man 2, what purpose did she solve? Did it really make any difference to that movie that she was a Russian mercenary assassin type? No, It meant nothing. It could have been anybody. It could have been random S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. It didn't need to be Black Widow. In this movie, I couldn't imagine the movie without Black Widow. She's great. She's fantastic. And it's also refreshing how there is no ham-fisted or forced flirtation or romance with any of the other members of the team. She has a close bond with Hawkeye, but it's because they've served together, but in no way is it forced to be romantic. You can interpret it as such if you really want to, but in no way are they forcing you to think that. And again, you know, the reason that relationship is established is to give Black Widow a drive as a character, certainly for the first half of the film, because Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye has been, let's just say, compromised for now. That's in the first half of the film, and her only focus is getting him back. Now, I've talked about the characters individually, but the fun of the film is just watching the different bonds and dynamics between them. My favourite pairing was watching Tony Stark and Bruce Banner working together in a lab, because they both end up sharing a deeper bond. Tony's always been the smartest person in the room, and at once he's showing off, but he's also desperate to just find someone who can keep up with him, someone who can speak the same language as him, and he finds it in Banner. But overall, these characters are just not meant to get on. And I think the best stretch of the film comes when, this isn't a spoiler, you should already know this, Loki is captured and thrown into a glass case like an animal, and it's amazing the damage he does just by standing there. You know, we know that he's let the heroes take him, and they know it too, and then there's this tension that builds because you know he's going to get out, you're just waiting for it to happen. And in fact, Loki doesn't have to do anything because the hero's own insecurities and mistrust do the job for him, all of which builds to this ginormous set piece at S.H.I.E.L.D. HQ, which reminded me out of something from a Roland Emmerich disaster movie at its most excessive. Speaking of the action, I only had two problems with the film, and they both come in the finale. The final battle sequence, I do think it does go on too long. I think the filmmakers, clearly money was no object here. Like, they came up with a wish list of every possible scene that they wanted to have in the film. Every little action beat they wanted these characters to do in a city environment, and they just decided to do all of them. And then cut nothing from the film. And it's proper action, you can see what's going on, I'm not complaining about that, but the final battle does have this bludgeoning effect towards the end. There's just these little 30-second segments here and there where you feel like, okay, did we need that? Did we need that? It just, you know, and it keeps going on and on a bit. I'm really not complaining about the length of the movie, but I just feel like, I know, I'm nitpicking. I know people are going to say,
no,
Phil,
actually not at all. I mean, that's a common complaint, is that there's too much action. I mean, that was sort of the problem with Transformers, is that not only was there too much action, like, particularly the first one, is that you didn't know what the hell they were doing. Like, what was the deal? Something about, go put this cube on top of a building and then do that. You know, what's that mean? I take it there's none of that in this. Like, you can understand what's going on.
Absolutely. I mean, the smart thing that they do here is the action. We talked about in the trailer, and we made fun of at the time, how all the action seems to take place on one street. Now, there's a specific reason for that, because they're keeping close to something. All the action is focused around this one location, which is the cause of all problems, and they need to stop it. So that's why all the action is focused around there, but that's the word for it. It's focused, so you always know what's going on, and that's the reason you don't have to worry about, you know, who's who, where's where, what's going on. You just kick back and enjoy the ride. The other problem, though, is that the aliens themselves, for all this hype and all this wonder about who the hell they are, in the end, it never mattered who they were, because they're given no attention and no development. They're just there to get beat up. you know, and I'm very glad that the aliens are not the Skrulls. I think that's public knowledge now that they're not the Skrulls. They're something else. I think fans of the comics would have been really upset if this were the Skrulls, because they wouldn't have been utilised properly. If I understand it right, and I've not read any comics with the Skrulls in, but if I understand it right, the Skrulls do have a little bit of a culture and a personality to explore, and they have a superpower. They're shapeshifters. So there's things you can do with them, and it just wouldn't have worked out here. These things are just foot soldiers that just get smashed, and it's a bit of a shame, but because Loki's so good, you don't mind it so much. But it is a flaw, and it's the only thing from stopping me from absolutely thinking that the film is mind-blowingly perfect. I mean, it's a 9 out of 10. It's just a fantastic film, and it is, as far as I'm concerned, the best Marvel movie to date. I love X-Men 2, I love Spider-Man 2, but I had little problems with those. This film is better. It is unfair to compare them to certain degrees, because this film cost the earth. It literally cost 3 times what X2 cost to make, and it is a similar kind of movie in that it's a team movie. They both expertly balance all of these characters. In fact, X2 probably has a harder job because it has more characters. It has even more characters to balance, and it does it so expertly. I just thought the third act dragged in X2, and they obviously didn't have as much money to play with, so it's almost unfair to compare them, but you can certainly compare them in the fact that both films are a fan's wet dream. Like, you will watch this if you're a fan of the source material, and you will not, I can't imagine you will find anything to complain about. There will not be a moment where you said, they got that character wrong, they got that moment wrong. He wouldn't say that. No, this has been meticulously designed by people who care and people who know this shit. It's been researched, okay? Nothing's been changed, nothing's been adapted, nothing's been compromised, and it works. Everything worked out for the best. I'm not going to excuse Marvel for the shortchanging on the individual films. Those problems don't go away just because the end result in Avengers is so good. But it is more than worthwhile as a payoff. You come away from this film not only being re-energized about these characters, loving these characters, but also safely knowing that the Marvel Studios legacy is preserved for at least another 5 years minimum. People will see Iron Man 3. I think the audience for Thor and Cap will grow thanks to this film, and people will see those sequels. God willing, the fates will align and they can get this group together for Avengers 2. I guess May 2015 would be the plan for when they want that to come out. We've got Iron Man 3 next May, Thor 2 November 2013, we've got Cap 2 in April 2014. And they're probably not going to do a Hulk 2, Hulk 3, whatever you want to call it in between then. So I would imagine, best case scenario, we get Avengers in 3 years' time. In fact, Kevin Feige has said that Iron Man 3 kicks off the start of a new overarching story, which basically will continue, I guess, through Thor 2 and Cap 2, and I guess culminate in the second Avengers. In other words, they've found their formula now, and they're going to stick to it. The individual character movies might get a little short-changed, but it's all part of an overwhelming tapestry. It honestly feels, watching Avengers, like they really did have all of this mapped out from day one, from Iron Man 1. I know that can't be the case. They couldn't have had all of this planned out. It just seems like it fell together in a beautiful way, but it really does feel meticulously executed. And if they can carry that along for Avengers 2, then I just think people are going to lap this up. It's going to be fantastic. And of course, I'm not going to talk about it till next week, but the after credits scene leaves you in no doubt where the next one is going.
I had 3 questions. One, I think you've already cleared up, because I had concerns because I've seen clips from the film, like the official released clips, not the YouTube things that people have been filming on their cell phone cameras or whatever. And I saw that there's a sequence where Thor and I think Iron Man are fighting in a forest, and it's at night. Whenever I see an action sequence taking place at night, it immediately my antenna sort of rises, and I think, uh-oh, So just to be clear, all of the action, you said it's clear. You can see everything that's going on. There's no doubt about that. You can see everything.
Absolutely. One of the smart things that they do in the night team sequence is that the characters actually are lit up. I mean, Iron Man himself has lights, so you can see him perfectly. Thor, and you've seen the shot in the trailer, raises the hammer to the sky to conjure the thunder. Yeah, you can see it perfectly clearly.
Okay, second question. Kobe Smulders, I think that's how you pronounce her name, as Maria Hill. They made a big deal out of releasing the press release or whatever, saying that she was going to be playing Maria Hill. I have not seen anything of her in the commercials or the trailers or anything. Does she actually do anything worth a damn in this movie?
No, she does nothing in this film. It is literally, I mean, I can't take credit for this. Someone else wrote the review and said this. It's like Sigourney Weaver's character in Galaxy Quest. The character she played on the show, where she would just take orders and read out things the computer was doing. She has no character. She has no personality. She's just there so Fury has someone to talk to. Now, on the flip side, I will say that Agent Coulson is given just as much attention to detail as the other characters in the film, in so much as that he is reintroduced, he's re-established, you don't need to know who he is going into the film, he's reintroduced for the characters, and it's for the audience, sorry, and it's for a very specific reason, because Agent Coulson has a major function in the plot. Not going to say what it is, most of you probably already know, I'm just not going to say it out loud, but it's wonderfully done.
Okay, last question. You were talking at the end about how Iron Man 3 is probably going to start like an overarching, like a new storyline or whatever. With the way that this film ends, and I haven't seen it yet, obviously, but can you see like maybe in Iron Man 3, like you said that Banner and Stark sort of have a bromance going on in this movie. Do you think we're going to see like Captain America or whoever popping up in each other's films still, or are they going to maybe keep them separate until Avengers 2?
Well, it's interesting because Feige's been asked that very question, and he's flat out said that one of the things they're intending to do for Iron Man 3 anyway is cut him off from his support. Like they're going to, in a sort of metaphysical way, take him back to the cave in Iron Man 1 where he's on his own and he has no tools and he has to rely on his wits again. I don't know exactly what they mean by that, but I get why they're saying that. One of the problems I always had about that character is that he is invincible. I get it with Thor, he's a god, but with Iron Man, nothing has ever been able to hurt him. Like, Ironmonger could not hurt him. Whiplash could not hurt him. In this film, you've seen this clip's been officially released, so it's no problem spoiling this. Thor whacks him with lightning from his hammer, and all it does is supercharges his suit by 4,000%, and he fights back. This guy can't be hurt. So and I think the major thing they do need to do in Iron Man 3 is hurt him. Find a way to do it. I understand in the comics he's called the Invincible Iron Man, but that does not translate to, film. You actually need to hurt your characters, so I very much hope that they're going to do that. But yeah, they've said as far as Iron Man 3 is concerned, he's going to be cut off and he's not going to be able to thrown in for support. As far as Cap goes, I will say that I definitely think there's going to be a lot of S.H.I.E.L.D. in that movie. And very much like in the comics, like we were talking about whether they're going to do Winter Soldier, in that comic, he's not on his own. Like, S.H.I.E.L.D's with him the whole time. He's got a whole team of S.H.I.E.L.D. guys. He's going to stick with them. Thor, I would hope, like, the whole of Thor 2 takes place on Asgard. It's possible. Like, they're going to go really crazy and cosmic for it, but probably not because Natalie Portman's coming back. But the only thing you need to worry about immediately is that Iron Man 2, he's going to be on his own.
What's a problem that you talk about, like, this summer in general? I mean, we'll talk about it next week with our special guest, but, it's like, where do you go after this summer? A lot of people have said this is probably going to be the defining time for the genre. Which is a genre that's not going away, but I think we are going to look back and go, like, this is when it peaked. With Dark Knight Rises and Avengers are going to be the two defining films of the genre. Not the two defining films of the genre, but the two ones where it never got bigger than these two. And yeah, where do you go from there? I don't know.
But I can't wait to find out what you guys think about it. I know you're not as big a Marvel fanboy as me, so maybe you won't gush quite as much, but I hope you trust me. I hope you trust me that I'm not. This isn't hyperbole. I honestly believe that they pulled it off, and it is an astounding accomplishment, and I was just in awe of it.
You never blubber, all right, about anything, and you didn't hear. But my point being is, a year ago you were telling us about, dude, trust me, because we had the same concerns about Thor, big time, and you're like, trust me, it works. And I actually walked away liking Thor more than you did, and felt that they actually didn't shoehorn it, really just fucking stop the movie for Avengers like they did Cap and Iron Man 2. So I trust your faith. I trust your judgment.
My faith. This is my faith now.
I meant the wrong.
Fuck Jesus.
No matter how strong the forces of evil may be,